Hi everyone, welcome back to ITOM batch 3, day 45. Good morning, how are you doing guys today?
Good.
Good to hear Farida. I hope weekend was good for everyone. Okay, I think now let's get started. So as we discussed, the today's topic to start with is service mapping. Right, so we are going to be start what is service mapping, how that works, what type of service maps we have, and what is the prereq for the service maps basically. So let's get started with that first. Let me know once my screen is visible to you guys.
Yes, Sachin.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what is service mapping basically, right? So service mapping is nothing but it just an mapping to map my organizations, or we can say build my organizations for particular service comprehensive map for all devices, applications, and configuration profile used in these application services. So service mapping we also called application services, but service mapping had different types basically to do that mappings. But end of the day, we are just mapping a particular services infrastructure in that particular way, so we can generate a architecture map of that particular application or particular service, right? And service mapping is just way of more clearly understanding application services. An application service is defined as a group of connected applications and host configured to operate together to provide a specific service to an organization for end users. Right. If I give an example of this particular one, like financial reporting, you can understand. So when an organization needs a generated financial report, they employ an application service that includes computers, hardware, web servers, application servers, database, and middleware, as well as the network infrastructure components. And each of these works together to provide the service of creating the desired financial report. Okay. Also, in traditionally what IT departments do, IT departments have relied on the horizontal discovery to map IT infrastructures, because horizontal discovery is the first prereq, where you should discover the device first in using the normal horizontal discovery or the discovery which we call, and update our CMDB, and then only we can proceed further for the mapping, right? So this delivery methods basically create inventories that act as a through every application and device is standalone without making the note of connections between device and application services. So if you are able to see in right hand side simple things, if it is a web applications, how that web is going to be start, like if you want to access any application which is on web, you have some URL, you have some entry point, and that URL or entry point, what happens which you don't know, but actually that URL and entry point, a typical if it is a typical architecture that going to be connect with the load balancers. So load balancers, which we have already discussed, which is balancing the load of our traffic, right? And once that is connecting to a load balancers, after that, my load balancers traffic, load balancer is distributing the traffic based on the incoming traffic, and that request sent to the different application or web servers in the first step, right? So web server can be in Tomcat or Apache or something other, right? So it can be send the traffic, and then web server going to be connect with the application servers and the database, right? So this is just a four layer of architecture where database, application, web servers, and load balancers comes in the picture, right? Now, what it depends on the different organizations, what other components they are using, but just mapping of those components using the automated way or the manual way or using the different tag based applications, that we called service mapping, right? So if I go to next slide, what service mapping use cases, what service mapping is help us to give the better visibility, right? So one is the reduced mttr. So reduced mttr is nothing but outage reductions we can do using the first service map. We can improve the change and incident management routing. We can reduce the risk and impact analysis of the change, and then we can prioritize high impact and critical business provided services. So the first is reduce mttr works in that way. Then automation, so we can enable the automations and reduce manual processes, so service map can be automated properly, and that can be up to date based on the schedules of the service mappings, right? And the third is visibility, which definitely going to give the visibility to end-to-end visibility to the our stakeholders or the customers, or help to empower the agent, right? But if in simple words, if I say the end goal is to achieve or to reduce the business impact on my applications, and service mapping gives that particular visualizations to us to understand where is the impact and what is the impact, right? As I showcased you when we discussing about in the last classes related to impact calculation, right? It help if service map is configured properly, it will provide the impact to us, where is the impact and how we can calculate how much it is impacting to my that particular service which we are using, right? So that we can do or we can achieve using the service mappings. If I go to the next slide, this is our couple of terminologies which we have already discussed, right? So midsummer we know, discovery we know, service mapping we just discussed, discovery credentials we know, tags. Now, tags is a label that consists of key value pair. Your organization may use tags to categorize its assets or enhance query reporting capabilities. These are not the CMDB key value tags, basically, right? Cloud discovery basically detects cloud resources, text from the cloud providers such as Amazon, AWS Cloud, and Microsoft Azure catalog cloud, along with the text that are associated with the configuration items. So that's basically tags is just a pair of the key and value keys. Like let's take an example, key is organization. What is the organization value is XYZ, right? Key is location. What is the value of that location? Key is something different, right? So the pairing of that one, we are just creating text, and based on that, it will, create that particular mappings and that we can utilize further, right? Then we have a series of operations that felt discovery with CI to find on your network what credentials to use and what tables populate in the CMDB. Two types of pattern already, which we discussed: infrastructure application, infrastructure patterns and application patterns. And that application type is used with both service mapping, top to down and horizontal discovery, right? So application pattern is mostly going to use here in our side when we are going to do the service mapping, but it doesn't mean only we are using application, we also using the infrastructure patterns as well. But infrastructure pattern is mostly for discover the infrastructures, and we are assuming when we are going for service mapping implementations, the infrastructures is completely discovered before that we starting the service mapping, right? And there are a couple of other terminologies as well, which is something like top entry level, right? What is top entry level now, right? So it just it just an entry point to initiate discovery on particular service, to decide the right entry point on your business service, considering the following points: how you would a user connect to the applications. As I just mentioned, if you want to access any applications, let's take an example of visa processing applications, right? Where you navigate, you navigate to that particular visa process application, web applications, right? might be some specific URL for that. Might be you want to purchase a phone online, right? Might be you're going to AWS or sorry, Amazon. Might be you're going to be the Flipkart, right? So that's are the end user or that URLs, that how you are connecting in backend. What is happening you don't know, but that URL which through you are connecting, that we always says top level entry point, so you are connecting to that one. Then we have internal endpoints. The internal endpoints is nothing but application flow connections. For example, a connection between a Apache web servers and a MS SQL database server using a MS SQL server entry point type. So that is also there, which you can define internally while you are creating a service maps. I will showcase you how that particular things will be do. Then inclusion entry points is there. So entry point that are used to create CI that should be included as a part of another CI. For example, a application server to its application or a web server to its a website, right? So that is also there, like a JBoss application server CI will have an application CI included in it, right? So that's the basic examples of basic, if I in my terminology I say, which is required to be start as in a service mapping configurations, right? Then what is load balancers, which we already know, like it's working as a reverse proxy and distribute network and application traffic across the servers, basically improve the overall performance of applications by decreasing the burden on the server associated with managing and maintaining application and network sessions, basically, right? Dependency map we have already discussed, which is you know uh, graphically displaying on infrastructure view for a configuration item and the application for business that it's part of its supports, basically, right? So whatever, if we are discovering a CI which which is dependent on any different CI or which is connecting to any different CI, that application view automatically created, right? If I go to the next slides, these are couple of terminologies again: application services, application business applications, what are the discoverable data, non-discoverable data, and CSDM, common service data model, right? So application service is a service that type is a logical representation of deployed application stacks, right? It's nothing but it's just showcasing our what are that are I can say what are the component are deployed for that particular application stack. So as I just mentioned, when you're accessing a URL, you are connecting to a specific URL, but in end of the day in backend, that's connecting to a load balancers, web servers, applications, and database, right? And then so on other type of devices. So that is an application service where we are purely giving the graphical representations of particular service in a architecture view. Okay, then applications, that code that installed and running on a configuration hardware like a server. So that application will have process that run on a server. The data is stored on CMDB, say APPL table in the ServiceNow CMDB, right? So application we called everything, right? Let's take an example here. We have our laptop. In our laptop we have installed the team, Skype, or I can say Microsoft Office. These are the applications for us, right? So that's in the a code which is installed in our configurations items. I just mentioned example of hard laptops or computers, but the same way applications like Apache, Tomcat, JBoss, MS SQL. These are the applications which is installed on a server. Then we have business applications. Business application is just a software that is specifically used for business purpose or business users to support the capability of the business, right? So like, we are working in an organization. So you have might be HR related business applications where you are checking your payrolls, where you are checking your leave management systems, right? Also you have different type of timesheets, right? Or your work to work related applications where you're filling the information there, right? So that are the business applications which is very specific to a particular type of business users which is accessing that particular one, right? Then we have discoverable data, which we are able to discover through the discovery and service mapping via servers, network gear, and the software comes. Not non-discoverable data, which is application service record, business applications record, or any user or group reference which is related to business owner, support groups, change group, or business categories. Right? We cannot discover that one. That's it. Every these particular data is manual data, which you have to sorry.
AJ, I think you're on.
Oh my bad. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm talking about the roles basically, right? So service mapping admin is something which is we are giving to that configurations of related things, right? So if anyone wants to be configure the service maps, that is the service mapping admin role we are going to be provide. Then discovery, it's help to execute, expected to configure and execute discovery in your networks. It's have access to the all access to discovery related applications, right? Then we have IT application owner, where that SM app owner or SM admin, two roles are there. Basically, SM app owner, it will provide the read list and record only to application owners who want to be see that, right? And SM admin is something application service dashboards, where he can go and check that particular service mappings basically only. Then we have service mapping user, which is maybe it's provide the limited role and view only roles to service mapping users, which able to see the service mapping but not able to do anything related to that, right? So these are the some specific roles which is required. Now I think let's move to nuts. Let's skip this one. I will take it later. Yeah. Before moving to this slide, any questions, that basic informations about the service maps from anyone else? I hope other pupils are joined. Yeah, I can see now. Okay, if not, I think let's proceed. So what are and how many ways to be create the service mapping, right? In different terms, we are saying different ways, but end of the day, service mapping ways, how we can do that, right? The first is dynamic CI grouping, and dynamic CI grouping we also called technical service, right? So it's best fit for small application services that are easily grouped using created list filter on the CMDB queries, right? So I already showcase you a couple of times how dynamic CI grouping is working. Basically, that's we have to be put or configure some filter conditions where we have to be configure CMDB group first using the queries. We have to be provide the filter conditions, and then this particular CMDB groups we can put a reference in the dynamic CI grouping or the technical services, right? What is the best view? What is the best thing is available here? It can be providing the quick visualizations, where if any person wants to see any specific location related informations, that can do that, right? Any specific filter conditions they can do, they can also see that using that one. High touch and low no license required, basically that also comes with event management, and there is no configuration or another license will required for the dynamic group CI groups basically, right? Manual is nothing but it's completely manual, where we are doing the mapping, connecting one device to another device, that's it, right? So it's best again fit for small applications or mainframes that do not change much and have high availability, right? So manual we are configuring in that time only if we know that are my static applications which is not doing and much changes, and this is only the typical architecture of this applications every time looks like, right? It gives the quick visualizations, again high touch manual updates required, and again no license required. So if we want to do that in using application service table, we can also configure the manual service maps. Then we have tag based service mapping, right? Tag based, it's basically going to be fit for cloud native containers, Aladdin's and virtual machine environments, basically where we use tag categories. I just mentioned key and value pairs, and it will useful for cloud and containers in the map and map multiple app services, right? So this is also one of the way where we want to be map specific cloud resources. Using that we can do that, right? And then last things comes, which is top down mapping, or we can say service mapping, or we can say application services, right? So here what is, there are two ways to do that. One is automated service suggestions and one is traffic and pattern based, right? Automatic service suggestions is nothing but if you just put the entry point and it's automatically based on the machine learning or based on the learn patterns, basically it's going to be create that particular applications to you. That's its automated service maps, and which give you the best, that will give you the best view. But it's mostly work for homegrown applications where you not did the much customization. It's connecting to that one step to the another steps, and it's going to use the application fingerprinting and the process to process, right? So what it's doing machine learning. It's have to time to value and needs training, basically, right? So it will not possible without the learn patterns or the training of machine learning. We cannot achieve this one, right? Then traffic and pattern based discovery is nothing, service mapping is nothing but it's recommended for mission critical applications, services for on-prem and legacy applications, which is doing the complete precise mapping where we know this is my critical applications. We are going with the pattern or the traffic based discovery only, and we are able to use the traffic based discovery to be discover. We can understand that one, and it's more granular, right? So it will give more information, more correctness of this, right? And traffic may be create redundant CIs, basically. So if we don't want to go with the traffic base, we can also configure or also design the service maps based on our requirements as well. So these are the basically I can say four types of service mapping available in ServiceNow: dynamic CI groups, manual, tag based, and automated service maps using the different ways of it, right? Any questions in this particular slide? If no, I think we can start or we can go further for what is the prereq for service mapping configuration or implementation for a customer. Okay. Any questions? First of all, again, I'm asking, and then we'll move to the next things. Okay. If no, let's start. So first of all, and these particular things is for automated services, or we can say application service table, right? Where we need to be map my application in three ways: manual, automated, or based on the pattern and traffic, right? So in all these three, we are doing in the application service table only. So here what we required, first of all, we required list of business services and the service maps or the use case details from the customer, right? So first of all, what we are trying to understand, like, sir, how many services you are using, what are the, what type of services it is, where that's the application services are deployed. It's a customer facing or you end user facing, right? Customer is internal, or their customer, but whatever the customers they have it, that organizations is using, or it's available for end users. Basically, it's available in the market to for any type of users which you are using, right? So we are trying to that particular understanding. We are trying to get that particular list from customers, and based on that, we will proceed further on the next step. Second, if let's take an example, a service we received, that service is for recharge, right? Now that service is doing the mobile recharge through the different applications or different, I can say the payment methods basically that's connecting, right? So in that case also you can do that. What you have to do in that way, basically you have to be sorry, you have to be required the specific uh, the recharge, where that recharge service is going to be connect and what is the things basically for that, right? So if recharge is a service which is helping out customers to do the recharge through the different payment methods or payment options, then you need to understand which load balancers that service is going to be connect, and we require the IPs for the discovery, right? First of all, we need to be understand if we are going with that, is that already discovery is done on those particular CIs, whatever the CIS comes in the picture, right? And then we are required the all CIS discovery which is going to use of that particular application service or the service map, right? So as I mentioned, if it is a recharge service that's connecting to a load balancers, definitely if it's connecting to a load balancer, it's connecting to web servers to manage the traffic, right? Load balancing or doing the round robin things of that for particular traffic, right? So that's connecting to a web server or multiple web servers. And then web servers is definitely connecting to an application servers, and then application service is going to be connect with database and other different type of systems, right? So we require the list of all devices which is going to use in the service maps. And why we required? Because we need to see or cross check in, to discovering those IPs first of all, right? If it is not discovered, we cannot proceed with service mapping configuration. That must be discovered on first place, right? Then we are asking for architecture diagram of the service maps, right? So whatever that business service or application service we defined or we find out from the customers, we require the architecture diagram of it, otherwise we cannot proceed. And architecture diagram is just give a information about the architecture view of that particular application service or the service map, so we can also validate from our side before customer is going to be approve and reject that particular service map, right? So it's give a validations to us to check the things before handing over or giving customers to approve and reject that particular service map. So that must be required. That this is the one of the most important top point where we require to be open the firewall policies. If you remember, when we are running discovery, we are opening the ports, right? But we are opening the specific ports for discovery, like where my Windows is running on port 135, my SSH Linux is running on port 22, and my SNMP or network device running on port 161. Here the same way, where my application is running, on which port specific my application is running, we required that particular port should be whitelisted from our ServiceNow mid servers, which we are going to use for discovery purpose specifically, right? So as I all earlier mentioned as well, again mentioning, we can use the same mid server which we are using for the discovery, right? So there is no connectivity or credential issue will face in discovery and service mapping, but we should avoid to use the same mid server for event management purpose. We required another mid server for event management purpose, right? So again, we required a firewall policies from mid server to that ports which on which my all applications is running, whatever it's a web application or it's a top layer applications or a database or whatever, right? So we need to be discover those particular things. Then the one of most important thing, point number 6, we required sudo command access to the couple of commands which is specifically going to use in the service mapping. If you remember, like, last time I mentioned there are a couple of commands which is required for the discovery, but here there are again couple of commands which is required for the service mapping. If that commands are not there, we are not able to get the details while we are doing the configuration of the service maps. And the most, not least, not last, not least, but most important again, the next point is read only access. We required the read only access of to the discovery user, which we are going to use to discover the service maps, that should have a read-only access of the configuration file. So how we are, creating the precise service maps or the accurate service maps, that's the way using the read-only file access to the particular device. So I will take an example later, but it just connecting from one device to another device. And then one device, the first device is giving me that information on which another device we are connecting, and that information is going to be stored on the uh, config file of that first device. So we required read-only access on it, right? And then we have a requirement sheet which should be filled by customer before moving out to that requirement on configuration of the service maps. And then we are going to the implementation of the service maps. So that particular list I have created based on my experience, and that can be tweaked based on your requirements as well. But what I'm just trying to put here, so these are the special, or these are the checklist basically before proceeding to implement the service mapping for any customer. We need to understand that particular things before that. Now, that particular sheet which I just mentioned here about the requirement gathering sheet, this is the requirement gathering sheet here. If I just little zoom this one with examples, I have already showcasing you here. So first of all, business service or application service names, or high level descriptions we required, where we just need to understand what actually that application or the application service or business service do, how it's performing, how it's helping out to users basically, right? So we require that name, that description, and that name of that one, right? Always, I'm just reminding you again, the business service name or the application service name or the technical service name are the logical names. We can put anything, or anything means we can go with the customer naming conventions only. Here, because that's not discoverable, we cannot control on it, right? If customer is saying it's a test, we have to be configured as the name as a test only. If customer is saying it's xyz hyphen prod, we have to be configured that service or business service as a xyz hyphen prod only, because it's a logical names whatever customer is using to be remind at the side, right? Then we required the entry point, the first thing, right? So there are multiple type of entry point available, right? It depends how customer is accessing that applications. One entry point can be http, one entry point can be https, one entry point can be tcp, one entry point can be citrix, and there are a lot type of entry point available for starting the configuration of the service maps or the application services, right? So if I just mentioned, if it is a application which is running on web or browser, that will be, you can say it's http or https, right? So like I just put an example here, http my booking mycompany.com/booking. So it's specifically using for booking purpose in my organization, right? If it is a TCP, right? So what we required here in the TCP entry point, we required a specific IP or the port on which application is running. So here, if you see 192.168.0.1 is the IP and 8081 port where the application is running on it, right? So if they are not able to provide any entry point, we can go with the TCP. If that is also not there, if it is a Citrix based application, we can go or we can ask for the Citrix based things basically, right? Where a customer is going to be provide me the Citrix URL to connect with that, right? So it again depend what type of application or what type of things is there, and based on that how we are connecting to that particular things. Okay. Now next, if we got that information that is the connection, this is the URL through which we are connecting, then we are going to understand which load balancer is it is connecting. And and if it is connecting to a load balancer, and then how it's going to be connected to the next level, right? Why this is required now? This is required basically, this is required to see if we are putting an entry point XYZ there, is that XYZ entry point is connecting to the correct entry correct load balancer or not, right? If the service is working correctly or not, that is required for that. Here, if you see, we just asking for that informations key, what is the name or the IP of that particular load balancers, what is the type and version of it, and how what is the outgoing connections from the load balancers to web servers or different things, right? So if you see outgoing connections we are mentioning here, it's going to be connect to the Apache SP01 or Apache SP02, which is running on port 8080, and the management IP of those particular devices is this, or the management IP of that load balancer is this. Based on that, that is going to be managed, right? And we required to see it's already discovered or not, load balancers and the outgoing connections are already discovered or not in the service now. If it is not, then we have to be discovered, and that's why we are asking type and version if we want to do checking that what type of device it is, it's correctly populating the informations or not, right? And based on that we can proceed further. Now once we have web servers and that in load balancers and that outgoing connection available, then we just need to know the web servers basically. If you see this one, these are my web servers or outgoing connections from the load balancers. Now this is the next informations which is available here. So here it's, you can see it's connecting to this particular web servers, version we required again, and from here, from these web servers, on which outgoing connection it is happening. So it's going to be connected with Tomcat. So we just need that informations basically, right? If it is a custom configuration, yes, we require that one. And again, as I mentioned, the configuration file path which we are going to use connect from one server to another servers to give the correct and the precise service map for that particular application, right? Also, if there are other component apart from these two servers, is this, which is again coming, but how it's going to be connected to that, that's IIS 7.0, and it's going to be connected to the database directly, right? It's not connecting to this one. So that's why we require to fill that applications, that particular sheet basically, where we can give the precise information to the customer. Then application service, application servers, if you see app CP01 and CP02, here it's CP01 and CP02. Now it's CP01 and CP02 connecting to which type and version you can see, but now it's connecting to database, right? Here if you see this particular application, web application layer directly connecting to database, but here web application connecting to application and application connecting to then database, right? But also you can see a web sphere is also there, which is not connecting to anywhere, right? So sorry, this particular server, it's connecting to the web sphere or WMIQ, right? Messaging queue basically, right? So that information is required again. We just need to check it's a custom or out of the box. If it's a custom, then we have to be configure the pattern as well, or we can say connection pattern for that, and then the configurations file path of those particular database where the database information is available, right? Then if you see it middleware, right? So here that application is connecting to the middleware, which connection is here. So that information is available here, and it's that middleware is going to be connected to the database, right? So that particular sheet is giving me that information how that connection is happening from one to second device. And then we have database, how the database is going to be connected, and if it is, it's also going to be connected to the next level devices or not, right? So that particular sheet we required to be asked to fill to the customer for each application service or each business service or each service map, right? If that is filled, there is one more thing, like, this is just an example which I provided here. I will ask to fill that information here to the customer. Right. Now, the another thing is, if any outgoing connections happening from one device to another type of device, or anything which is not able to cover on this particular sheet, right? So sometimes what we feel, if I just give a scenario, because that is a typical architecture which I just mentioned to you, where web is connecting to application is likely connecting to database as well as connecting to middleware, and then middleware is going to be connected to the database, right? But if any third party application involved which is not in your infrastructures, if any other application is involved which is in your infrastructures but not belongs to that particular service, right? If you want to see a impact, if you want to see or add to this particular things in your service maps, then this particular things will be update here, from which servers to which database or server it's connecting, what is the port on it, and details to make the connections, basically the config file things, basically we need it, right? Sometimes what will happen, that is not you know a device which is not directly part of my application service or the service map, but if that's not working, if that's not happening properly, that's not working properly, it's going to be impact my service map. And we are just only sending some information from my application server to that particular device. And if we are not able to send that informations, we are getting the failure at our side, right? Only that's the dependency, but that's not part of my application. That is a different service, that is a different application service part, but we want to showcase at our side. In that case, that information is required. Okay, from which servers we are connecting to which server, and what is the configuration and port informations we require to do that, right? Apart from that, there are a couple of sudo commands which I just mentioned to you, right? So here, these are the commands for each type of devices which we are going to use, and that's available on the ServiceNow documentation as well, which required to do the list of the content, get the working directory for a process. It's required to be get it from that one, right? So AIX, if I do cat, it's showcasing me the complete file content, right? Is ls list of the directory content, right? And under that parameters we have also mentioned here, proc wdx is get the working directory of a process. The same way we have cat in hpux, we have cat in solaris, we have cat in linux, ls, netstat or stat, right? And there are different type of commands for each type of devices, a lot, right? So I just mentioned here each and everything just to give a informations to customer. If that access is not there, or the sudo access is not provided for my discovery users, we cannot proceed further. And that type of errors occurred, much occurred in the service mapping configurations whenever you do this one, right? Which commands which is not required a sudo access is there, so that's not required a sudo access, and that's we can proceed further without the sudo access, but that's required the sudo access for sure, right? So that's particular prerequisite which we need to be filled. We need to be collect that information from the customers, and after that we are only proceeding further to configure the service maps. Any questions in that particular Excel sheet before moving to the next things again? Anyone, any questions? Still
Ajay,
restarting.
sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Ajay, will you going to share that Excel sheet? Like, I need to want to go one more time on that.
One more time. Why? What you need? Just ask me that one, right? If you join late, I cannot
no.
help you.
I didn't.
But
I was in the call itself. Like I was just few questions, and that I just want to be. Can you come to this? What is that service
I'm on
mapping
Excel.
file? Sorry.
I'm on the sheet, Excel sheet itself.
Yeah,
Service
yeah,
map field data here. This one sheet.
yeah. This is one we need to ask to client like regarding these conditions which you are
Yes.
mentioning. The
Right.
the other one.
Yes,
Yeah.
so this is just an example here, which I give an
Mhm.
example. Ki sir, you have to be fill that particular sheet which is here using this particular
Okay.
format, right? If it is an entry point, just follow this particular informations. If it is a load balancer, just follow that information. So he can fill the correct or complete informations in this particular sheet. Right. Otherwise, if I'm not given a particular example to the customers, he is not able to understand what needs to be filled where. And also, as I mentioned, whenever we are going for any requirement gatherings and any discussions, what we do first of all, we do the workshop sessions with the customer where we are elaborating about that particular sheets or our requirements, and also we are listening from the customer requirements, try to understand their architectures, their data centers and other informations, right? And then we are going to be proceed further.
Is the same for all the things? Like I mean to say, for every application, or like do we need to do change according to that?
No, that's same for every manual, automate and pattern slash traffic based service maps.
Okay, got it.
Especially mention manual, automate, and pattern slash traffic based service maps. That is the same only. And the tag based might, tag based it's little different, but tag based is just doing the different things. Basically, it's for cloud only. And the manual is something different where you no need to be filled that particular, sorry, dynamic CI is something different where you no need to be filled this particular sheet. You only required some filter conditions and the information from the customers. Based on that, you are going to be configure the CMDB groups, and then you are going to utilize in the technical service or the dynamic CI groups, basically.
Okay, Ajay.
But
And
the
command pseudocodes are Ajay, and that is going to share with us. Like
with
it was a
right, so customer is going to be provide that sudo access using
okay.
that discovery user, right? So if the sudo access is not there, we are not able to get much information from that servers to making the connection from A to B that required. The same way, if you remember, like I also
Mhm.
mentioned the some sudo commands for the discovery as well,
Yep.
where so if we need to be get some attribute related informations, we are going to do that, right? So one command is which required sudo access is dmi decode, right? Why we are using dmi decode? Dmi decode is useful to get the serial number informations for the Linux machines, but we cannot fetch the serial numbers directly running that command on that machine. So we are using dmi decode in that case with the sudo access. Because why you require root access, the customer is not able to provide the root access. Root is the complete admin access on that machines. Customer is never going to do that, right? So what we do, we are asking for some limited access for some limited commands, and that's why we called sudo access on it.
Okay, Ajay. And every time, suppose we are working on manual or automated one, that every time we need to use a pseudocode kind of thing like to work.
In the manual, there is no access required. Nothing is required.
Okay.
Okay, only the discovery is required. Discovery should be completed. Apart from that, you just need to manually map the CIs from one to next level. That's it. Okay, but in automated or in traffic and this particular one, you require that sudo access and other things basically.
Okay, Ajay. I mean, the commands which are showing like for all commands are for different purpose, right?
Right. You see, no,
Yeah.
like I just mentioned, and especially mentioned that this required for AIX, this is required for HPUX, this is required for solar winds. Solaris, and this is required for Linux, right? So cat, what they are doing, this is they're doing the show file content. If I just put like cat space the file name, it will give me that information of that particular command, what content is available in that command, right? The same way
Oh,
ls, if we are putting ls hyphen these particular commands, that will give me the list of directories basically. The same
okay.
net stat, the same way stat, right? So that's basically connecting through this to this. That's command we required basically with sudo access.
Okay, Ajay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone else? Guys, do you have any other questions?
Will you going to share that Excel sheet with us, Ajay?
I think here, this is just prepared for my purpose only. You can also, because, whatever I just shared, everything, this particular thing, this
Mhm.
particular thing, this particular things also available on ServiceNow documentations. What I just did it, I just clubbed it.
Okay.
Okay, so you can, or might be, I'm not sure, that command which are just showcasing you, might be there are some changes as of now based on the release to release, right? But end of the day, my purpose, what I'm just trying to visualize you, that we required the sudo access, right? So if I just shared with you, might be you follow this same thing, it's not good, right? So just follow the ServiceNow document, updated documents, and from there you get that information that will be good basically to share with the customer if you want to do it in future or to get more information about it. That's why I'm trying to avoid to sharing that informations or let that related that document, because that's frequently going to be update. I just created, I think, in the last January region, but if you see the Yokoma is already released now, right? So documentation is updating again. So just refer the latest documentations every time whenever you are going to do anything for any customer.
Sure. I mean, I think it is easy to, to cross check. So that's the reason I'm asking. If possible, try to share Ajay.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
the what I'm trying mentioning, there is nothing specific in this Excel sheet, right? What I just did, I only collate the different things and put it in this particular Excel. I can share you. I'm not saying I cannot share you, but I'm just avoiding this one because this will create some confusions later, and some persons which I face mentioning ki sir, this is received from Ajay, he's providing the service now training or service mapping trainings, and some questions come to me, right? Because they are not validating before going to the customer. I just use for specifically training purpose created these particular things, right? You can use also to get the same information from the customer. Now if what I feel, sometimes customer says I don't want to be fill that Excel sheets, I will give you that informations in the PPT or in the Word format or something, right? So we have to be follow that informations based on the customer, but my end goal is just to showcase you if you want to guide your customer or educate your customer, you can use that, sir. We require this particular format to be filled from your side, and that's the information we required it. And now it's up to you. You want to fill it in Excel, or you want to fill it Word format, or you want to fill it in PPT or whatever. Because each customer having the different prospectus and different ways to do that. Okay, I think let me see, is my instance is up, somehow it's not working or not up now. It's okay, let me try to see. No, I think it's not up yet. I just want to showcase you something. Okay, like how that's connecting to basically manual and all, but it's somehow my instance is not up yet. Okay, I think yeah, it's done. Let me see, but it's already, we are on the time now. But meanwhile, let me showcase you something quickly. Application service, I'm going to in the service. This is going to be refer on SA discover service table. If I click all, where the service type is empty or the service type is discovered. If I just put it this one, if I quickly click on the new, so this is the table, application service table or the mapped application service table, which you are able to see that is going to use for service mapping configuration most of the time, right? And it can be used for all automated, manual, or traffic and pattern based discovery, right? Each discovery or each service maps we required a entry point, right? If you see, I can put the name here, test, I can select the owner, whatever I want, and you can see discovery, discoverable by service mapping or manually created. If I go with the manually created, you can select the particular CI again as an entry point. If you are going with the discoverable by service mapping, you have these type of entry points basically. If I just click on the web applications, you can see you have web applications means you have to be provide the HTTP and HTTPS, right? If you want to select other applications, you can see the all type of entry point here. Right now, it just we need to understand from the customer where the entry point is going to be fit. Most of the 90% customers having HTTP and HTTPS entry point or the TCP entry point, but 5 or 10% customers only have the different type of entry point, which can have Citrix, which can have ACL, which can have AGP, which can have Wistock, which can have computer security endpoint, DB2, EGB, anything, right? F5 directly, FTP endpoint. So it depends customer to customer. So when we are going to do that, those particular things, we need to understand from the customer that informations. And the same way, as I mentioned, if I going with the manual, we just need to be put any CI, what type of that is belong. I can put anything here. Like if it is a Windows, I can see Windows server, and I can select the Windows server from here. Let's take an example of this and let's add it. So as an entry point, once I add it, it's added here, right? And if I just want to go here and if I want to add https://google.com, it's also added as an entry point here. So now we have two entry point, one is manual, one is automatic on one service maps, and we can see we can click on the view map, right? If it is, if it is discoverable, it will discover something. If it is not, then it just showcase you something on the map itself. So that's how we are starting the configuration of the service map. I think tomorrow we can do couple of lab sessions. I have it, and based on that we can proceed further. So if you see, this is because a manual, it's connecting to this particular, I can say Windows server. It's showcasing as a map, but it's not because there is no mid server is running because I just put it https://google.com. It's not able to connect this one because mid server is not running here. So it just gives me some error, right? Here, if I just need to add, I can add a CI again. It's a manual basically, right? So what I'm doing, I'm just doing the manual. If I just need to be connect an application, I can go there. Okay, there is no application. Let me close this one. Let me open something else. Let me add if it is connecting to a Linux server, right? So I can add this particular Linux server. It just add a connection here automatically. So it just added here, right? If I just need to add one more, if I just take an example of database, where yeah, here. Let me see here. Database is there. You can see just adding one more database. Let me add one more database. So this is completely manual where customer is providing you that particular information, how that's connection happening from one to another. And you're just adding this one, right? So if you see that's created, right? So basically as an entry point, my this particular web Windows server is an entry point. How that end user is accessing, that's connecting to an application server, which is Linux app, and then it's connecting to a database. So this is the complete configuration of the manual service maps, right? You just need to click add CI, remove CI. You can add manually, you can add a connection here as well, right? So my connection basically as an entry point if you want to add. If customer is providing you some URL related to database, related to any other things, you can do it here as well, right? So that's how the complete manual application service maps configured, right? And if you see there is no issue, only the condition here that CI is should be discovered through the service map or through the normal discovery. And if it is not discovered, the CI record should be available in the CMDB. Only that's the requirement to go with that manual configurations of the service maps. Okay, any questions in it?
Ajay, you created two things on the same page, right?
Yeah.
Like
So
usually we do that. Like how it is a bit confused on this part, Ajay.
we do that. We do that. That's what I'm saying. An
Mhm.
application have multiple ways to access it, right? So whatever the
Okay.
entry point comes under that particular application service, we can put multiple entry points here. It's not a big deal, right? So means let's take an example, a application which is running on HTTPS, okay, which is running on HTTP, which is also running through the mobile, which is also running through that normal IP accessing internally. If there you are accessing, the four ways is there, the four entry point will be there for the different ways. Now the thing is, the four entry point which you put it here might be connecting to the four different load balancers, might be those are connecting to the four different application servers or databases. In that case, you required four entry point. But end of the day, if everything is connecting to the one database, one load balancers, that's in that case not required to be the four entry points to be created. Only the one entry point can be suffice, because if anything is happen that's connecting to the all only one web servers, one database, one load balancers, so you can do that single entry point. But I see lots of organizations have lots of entry point, and if that is only for that particular service, you can configure it in one application service record only as a multiple entry point types or the same entry point types. Okay, I hope you're getting it, guys.
Still confusing.
This
Yeah.
is this is little confusing. 100% agreed. I'm trying to mention here. Let's take an example in this way. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. This is I'm just opening this airtel.com. Okay. Now customer comes to me and mention ki Ajay, we have an we have an URL airtel.com for India. Let me click on the India. Okay. Now see, we reached out to in India https://www.airtel.com. This is a business service basically, right? Under that we have Airtel Black. If I just go for Airtel Black, click on this one, you can see the URL is changed, completely changed. Okay, so that's my one entry point. If I go to view plans, now URL is changed. That is one entry point for me, right? Two entry point, one business service, which is
India.
Airtel India, and under that we have two entry point for this one. If I go with the prepaid for recharge, now you can see recharge prepaid is changed. Okay, and if I go for postpaid pay bill, you can see postpaid bill hyphen pay CID header. So now what I'm trying to mention here might be each URL which I'm clicking here under that, it's connecting to the different component or different device in backend, right? It's not connecting to one device or one load balancers. So if it is connecting to the different, definitely we need to be put different entry point. One entry point I'm just putting like for recharge. I'm going to be go with this one because I need to be track the recharges, right? Second thing, I need to be track the pay bills. I can go with that. So two entry point is there, but both entry point are having HTTPS. Sometimes that can be possibility. Some have HTTPS, some has HTTP, some has TCP, some has Citrix, some has something different. So we can put which if that serve, so putting that servicing for one application service or business service. We can do that. We can put multiple entry point in it. I hope now you're able to correlate with this.
Yes, yes, Ajay. I got
Okay.
understand.
So that's the basically, and this is for automated manual, whatever customer is providing you an architecture. If I just put an architecture of, okay, architecture of, WhatsApp, let me put, if I just put an image of it, you can see. So how WhatsApp is working basically, that's the component, right? So if you see, let me see the infra side. Okay, see, so there are two, mobile. How the connection is happening? It's connecting to wide AWS server. It's connecting to media store CDN, then connecting to the MS SQL and Postgres database, and then Risk and this one. It's connecting to this one, right? So if customer is just providing you static data, right? Okay, let's connect a this is the entry point. It's not going to be changed much, and just connect this particular application, that's connect database, that connect this. Just you do it, you follow the manual architecture in this simple format, right? with infra. I'm just trying to showcase you one typical architecture basically. Yeah, I think use this one. So load balancer connecting to the asset service which have CDN and blobs storage, microservices and this. So if it is like this, you need the component, which component it's working, and you need to be connected as a manual. So which I just did it here. So my when I'm accessing manually or when I'm connecting any application, that's connecting to my Windows server and then going to be with Linux app, and then it's going to be connected with the database. So it's not going to be changed much. So I go with the manual application service or manual service maps configuration. Okay, I think that's all which I just want to be covered today. Any questions in it before moving to the next sessions tomorrow? This is little different,
No,
but
Ajay, I don't have.
it's completely discovery, right? So if your discovery is good, if you understand discovery correctly, so sorry, service mapping, you can also configure it. Only just need to know the process of the configuration. Apart from that, everything is leveraging through the discovery only.
Ajay, here in service mapping, do we need to write any coding or only configurations part will be taken care?
Only configuration parts and the
Okay.
patterns. Sometimes we have to be configure the patterns. Connection section patterns basically. Like we configure the extension section, if you remember, the same way on application servers, application patterns, we have connection sections which we have to be write to make the connection from a device to b device using the config file. I just mentioned now, like we required config file details, right, from web server to application server. So if that's not happening automatically, then we have to be configure or create the connection section pattern where we are going to be passed the config file and making the connection using that informations, and then it's going to be populate on the service map. Okay,
Okay.
I think yeah, that's all for today. I think we'll close the session now and we'll connect tomorrow to proceed further.
Sure, Ajay. I will go with the video one more time and I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Thank you.
You guys, till the time, thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye. We'll meet you tomorrow at the same time.
Thank you all. Bye.